Cześć, witamy w podcaście Szkoły Impro. Ten odcinek jest wyjątkowy, bo nie dość, że jest po angielsku, to jeszcze był nagrywany w dość spartańskich warunkach. Rozmawialiśmy w Maratkach na naszym obozie impro, co wpływa trochę na jakość nagrania, ale niemniej warto go wysłuchać, bo rozmowa jest ciekawa. Miłego odbioru.
How does one become an international teacher or performer or someone who's traveling Europe? You're here today. You said next week you're going where? Germany. Then another festival.
The UK.
Then UK. That sounds great. And the question is now, how does one ambitious improv individual, someone who's learning improv now, get there? How to do it?
I think I very genuinely love teaching, and I've always been, but like for the last 20 years I've been teaching, which is pretty damn long. I think the teaching got me eventually into improv. I was teaching dance and theater to kids, and then I got into improv, and then I started teaching improv. And I really enjoyed sort of like going, where does the thing that I already know, which was dance, combine, or how it can be added to improvisation, which meant that my first workshop was Dancing for Dummies. And it was a workshop. It's funny because like it's a title that works like crazy. And people were like, I'm a dance dummy, can I take it? And so that sort of snowballed.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Dancing for Dummies workshop within improv was a little different from I wasn't teaching like characters or scene work. I was teaching something specific in there. That sort of like gave a bit of a push. It sure also helps that I love teaching and I'm having a good time and people ask me back. But this sort of little bit like, oh, that's a little different. Let me take a shot on this teacher. And I think that from there on, I also started developing an international network, not per se through the teaching, but just by going to festivals and to traveling to other places. Sometimes I would take a workshop abroad and sort of start that network, start talking to people. If I could mention I'm teaching Dancing for Dummies, I would, right? And then, I'm not saying them like, you have to invite me, but if they don't know that I teach it,
somehow you want to be modest, but still you want to just show people what you do, and that's fair. That's nothing.
I think so. I think
bad.
It wouldn't be go like, did you by the way know? More like, oh, if I could fit a story about how I was teaching that in there, great. If someone doesn't pick up on it, fine. But if they do, and I think I was very quick also in telling the world about it, not just in conversation, but also on the blog, on social media, just. If people don't know what you do, it's very hard for them to invite you.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think for me, I started traveling. So I discovered my first international festival, I don't know, like very early on when I started improv, and it was mostly to participate, to go take workshops here and there. There was like the very beginning of an international festival in France, which was like, we have for a very long time, we've had international French-speaking festivals. And for the first time, there was this festival that was also inviting people. Remember, I think the first time I went there, where there was someone from Brazil. And I was like, what? They have improv in Brazil? and then
it's only 200 million people.
Yeah, exactly. And then from little by little, you discover, there is a world out there, basically. And that was a good way for me to get excited about it. And then I started traveling more regularly with a show of mine, with two other friends from Strasbourg. We had a show that was pretty successful. And then very quickly we got invited to multiple festivals. But the thing that I would say is that for a unknown individual that would be enthusiastic about trying to develop their international career, it's like showing up to festivals. Like the cold applications can work, but it's much harder. As a festival producer, it's very difficult to invite someone that you've never heard of.
Right.
And so
And
having
them.
exactly
Right.
so having someone that you kind of know what their face is, and you've at least seen them once somewhere. You can be like, oh, maybe I had a good vibe, or maybe I understand what the work that they're doing, or someone else can vouch for them. All of that is really helpful. So like showing up to festivals, even if it's just to take workshops, hang out, get to know people, that's really, really helpful. And the second one is apply to festivals before you're ready. Because it takes, I think, except for a few exceptions, or if you're already known by people that organize, but if you start applying to festivals, it will take a good 6, 8, maybe 12 months before your first application is actually picked, which means that by applying over and over, it also spreads a little bit the fact that your group or your person as a teacher exists. And that's a very good way to show yourself. I would even say, if you can apply to a festival and when you're rejected, still go there, it's a really good sign that you're excited about actually investing in something. And that's not possible for everyone, obviously, and that's not possible all the time. But I think, not waiting to have the perfect product to apply for the first time is good. And then evaluate where you're at, really. There are some festivals, I mean, Impro Amsterdam is offering now 2 different types of applications for group. Read the applications and apply to the thing that actually fits.
Yeah.
It sounds dumb, but it's like, it's 80% of the success.
What are the 2 kinds?
In Impro Amsterdam, we have now an application for established groups. So it's like, if you're a professional group that is established in this specific format with this specific cast, you've been rehearsing it, you've been playing it a lot, then you can apply for this. And these are shows that are paid, where you get paid part of your plane ticket, part of your hotel, etc., etc. But it costs a lot of money to the festival. And then we also want to give stage time for either experiments or groups that are younger or that have less experience. And these are what we call new formats. And falling under there are, well, younger traveling improvisers or experienced improvisers that want to try a new format, or experienced improvisers that never played together. And, we cross each other for 10 years in festivals. And now we're like, oh, let's do a show. That's a great experiment, or that's a great place to experiment that. And the conditions are really nice to play, but these shows are not paid. But in general, I think reading the things and answering your emails, that gets you 80% of the way. Like,
That doesn't seem hard, people.
Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah, but we find that like a lot of people don't read anything, like the descriptions, like applications, terms and conditions, rules.
So people apply with their yodeling show and juggling show.
I think we have said to
Yes.
each other.
Yes,
We have said to each other that 80% of the success of our career is the fact that we answer our emails. And it just makes a lot of, yes, you need get a foot in the door. These are some tips to get a foot in the door. And from that point on, it's answering emails. It's being nice when you're there. It's checking out what do other places want or need that you can offer. Is there an overlap in there, or do you need to develop some skills more, or do you maybe need to leverage some of your specialties more? So it's more than just improv. It's also kind of almost like an entrepreneurial mindset.
So you have to be serious about what you're doing.
yeah,
Pretty much.
be reliable.
Yeah,
Basically.
be reliable.
Definitely, if you're you get into a festival and then 2 weeks before you cancel, that's a good way to get blacklisted.
Yeah.
And then, all festivals in Europe are not connected directly, but a lot of us, we talk to each other, we know each other. So it's also be aware that behavior comes first. And then if you're invited to a festival and you do really a show that is not good, it's actually not that dramatic, because it's still improv.
Yeah.
And
we all
it
know
doesn't mean do a shit show.
Yeah.
And it's also do your best, obviously. But sometimes we go to festivals and the show is not great. And it's we need to trust the fact that, well, it happens to all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
But not answering emails, or not signing your contract, or I don't know, suddenly showing up with a different cast from what you applied. These are things that are not really they're avoidable.
Yeah, definitely avoidable.
Yeah, what you said, I think for a lot of people can be very, I don't know how to say that, maybe not heartwarming, but actually like maybe calming, because a lot of people get very, I don't know, stressed about performing on the festival. Because if you perform like from time to time for your audience, it's like some shows will be better, some will be worse, but they kind of, they average into your level in the end. But when you're on the festival, this is the time. This is like 8th mile. This is the moment. The moment that your whole life, like is
Focuses
on
in
this
this one
one
moment.
single point. And for a lot of people, it can be very overwhelming. So it's good, I guess, by a lot of people to hear that this is not the end of the world if this show doesn't go.
Yeah, and I think we
well.
can, especially when you're an experienced improviser, you can tell the difference between, okay, these people are just not very generous improvisers and kind of bitchy with each other versus, this really likable group just didn't have their evening, didn't have a great night. We can see that difference, and that makes a huge difference for the next times or your chances for another festival.
Also, I would say something that is like, I don't think I've ever seen Polish people in festivals not do that, but I'm going to say it anyway, just in case. If you go to a festival, go see the other shows. Like, hang out with the people, like, be open. Yeah, and it's like, even without the networking part, it's just like, festivals are such a rich, intense, tiring piece of time. And if you're in a festival, try to get the most out of it. And that also goes through seeing a bunch of other shows, like festivals that, like most festivals that are over 4 days, usually I have like 4 shows a night. So it's like 16 shows in 4 days. It's way too much. It's probably amongst these 16 shows, one you will not like, one you will love, and then anything in between, right? But it's really important to do that. And then obviously there is the network aspect, which is not even like show your face, but just like be nice with the others. Like you would like for other people to watch your show. So
Come up and say thank you. Say
Exactly.
I like you,
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah, we'll do whatever you would like other people
To do
Yeah.
after your show.
that seems like a good general advice.
And what about this, like, okay, there's the festival scene and the festival circuit, but what about the scene like in Amsterdam? How does it look?
because you both live in Amsterdam now.
And there are theaters, there are companies. How's this chemistry? Because we have a lot of companies also, and a lot of bigger and smaller organizations in Warsaw. I was wondering about the scene in Amsterdam.
Yeah, improvised theater has been for 35 years or so in the Netherlands, which is one of the countries where it arrived early. And interestingly, is that it didn't professionalize accordingly. So the form of improvisation that is very common in Netherlands is theater sports. So this, I would even say, it's sort of like a rip-off version of the Keith Johnstone theater sports, and that is
with the identical T-shirts.
not
and,
even.
Okay.
No, it is.
But it's called theater sports, so it's so different.
So
Yeah,
It's-
I think what you're saying is comedy sports.
comedy
which is-
sports,
which is-
yes.
which is-
Yes, of course. In Chicago, when they have the same like football jerseys, and the siren goes on when you're down.
And there is a
You know,
referee.
There's a referee
Oh
with
yeah.
a whistle.
I would say
So,
it's
yeah,
a whole
that's what
separate.
I was thinking
I
about.
was going to say it's a whole separate lecture of like all the different forms of
Competitive improv.
Oh my! No, so Keith Johnstone developed theater sports, and then the form that is very common in Netherlands is theatersport, which is sort of like the Dutch version of theater sports, which is similar but different. And that is very widespread, and I think only in the last, let's say 15 years, long form, so especially narrative long form, has slowly made its way, as well as de vloer op, which would translate as on the floor, which is a TV, it's improvised theater on TV, almost like dramatic improvised theater. But we're talking like, I don't know, 5%, and then 90% theater sport. And then Amsterdam specifically has a big English-speaking improv scene and a somewhat smaller Dutch-speaking improv scene. And in the English-speaking scene, we have our own company. So the two of us, we run Flock Theater, where we do improvised theater, often in a genre. There is Easy Laughs, which is more short form, often, not always. There's Boom Chicago, which is a whole separate thing because it's only run by people from the United States. And then there are also some Dutch groups, but they are definitely leaning more towards theater sport. And then there's some other groups here and there through the Netherlands that do more long form stuff, more narrative long form stuff. I think that's if I compare it, I didn't know that other scenes in Europe were so much more professional. So as much as I might hurt Dutch people's feelings, it's something I didn't know until I started traveling, which again, another reason why you should go travel. You don't know what you think is normal until you go travel. I think that's what am I forgetting about the?
Yeah, I think it's a good summary. I would say like the scene in Amsterdam compared to how long improv has been in there and how big the city is to me very, very small. There is not a lot of improv. I mean, Boom Chicago is probably the most professional of all these companies simply because they run for 30 years and they have a business model that is their own. It's an island. It's a US island in the middle of Amsterdam, right? But besides Boom, the rest of the scene, I think the English scene is the most professional of the two. And the Dutch scene is very tiny. It's a lot of amateur small groups that are just, rehearsing once a week, performing twice a year. And that's about it. There is not a lot of, I think compared to Strasbourg, which is it's a small city, but it's very, very active. There is really a lot of improv, a lot of professional groups, a lot of schools, a lot of big associations, big groups and stuff that it's very, very alive. The scene in Amsterdam is, just much tinier. And what surprises me as an artist that, I used to have a day job and I chose at some point to do that thing full time is that I signed up for a combination. I love teaching and I signed up for a combination between teaching and performing. And what I realized in the Netherlands is that people that professionalize in the Netherlands, most people that professionalize into improv in the Netherlands stop performing outside of corporates. So they will either continue performing on stage and stay amateurs, have a day job and just kind of do that. And some people have a lot of experience, but they just do that on the side once a week. Or if they choose to professionalize, usually they will give up on the stage part and only teach soft skills and sometimes play for corporates.
This whole model multiplies everywhere that improv professionalizes, and that's what's happening here. I mean, we still play and teach and run the companies and everything, but I can sense that this direction of, you know what, I'm gonna stop playing now and I'm just gonna focus on business because I'm 50 and I had enough. I can see that happening. I can actually understand why people go that route. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that in your future, or do you want to play and you're a stage animal forever?
and completely gray
and
decrepit.
I'll make a point here. I think we should have more gray people on stage.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Because it is a very specific demographic what we see on stage, and it's not diverse enough.
Yes,
it's not representative.
Not at all. I would love to play in a cast with a 16-year-old and an 86-year-old, and just having that variety. I hope I can be the 86-year-old woman on stage that makes everyone else think, why aren't they on stage? If they can be on stage in scripted theater, then why shouldn't they be in improv?
I would like that for myself also. That was a very shocking thing when we went to Chicago, let's say, and we see people 50, 60-year-old just playing a show on a Thursday. So I'm like, wow, this guy probably spent 40 years just doing improv, and he just...
One of my favorite improvisers who recently passed away in Chicago, Noah Gregoropoulos, he was actually he was gray when we first went there, like 11 years ago or something. And he was amazing. Like he was very, like, I don't know how old he was, honestly. I think he was like in his late 70s when he passed away. So when he saw him, he was like he was like a full-on boomer. And
We've all done that.
so older than our parents, but he was so cool. He was so like like he was an amazing improviser, but also he was so up to date. Like there was no like drag. You didn't see that. Oh my God, they have to go at the pace of this guy. He was actually he was the star. So I think, I agree totally that we should have more great people.
Maybe that's also the way for us to be relevant forever.
And I think also it's just like I love the combination that our jobs offer, right? Like I love teaching, but I also love performing, and I also love sometimes thinking about corporate, and I also love doing some other things that are connected, like creation or stuff like that. And so I think my all of that feeds each other, and the moment I will stop performing and exposing myself to the thing I teach, I think I will quickly go stale. And vice versa. I love teaching so much that if I only perform and I don't teach, I think I'll get tired of it too. So it's just about finding a pace and that pace can vary sometimes depending on life, but finding a pace where I can find that complementarity.
In our company, we make productions and so we perform regularly, and definitely something else happened to my improv now that the last few years I'm performing so regularly, because as was mentioned before, in the Netherlands, we have a low number of shows per year. And so what happened to me, just performing more often, I find, I'm a better teacher. Also just have more examples that are more recent of, I'm teaching you this because it's very useful for this and this situation. I do also think that performing, if you don't get paid for it, and that's still like, I mean, we're working on it and we're getting there, but it's not a cash cow. Performing is not a cash cow.
In the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands. I don't know. It's where I grew up. It's the only thing I know. And because it's not a cash cow, it's kind of like only for those that earn enough money with other things that they can allow for performing. Now we're working on it, and we're getting there. We're getting there that also performing starts paying, and we need that because if for whatever reason we ever need more money, I don't want performing to drop off my plate. I want it to be part of my job.
That's a threat.
Yeah, but like if it pays anything, it's already much better than in the US.
True.
When you have to pay to perform.
Yeah.
There we go. So then in suddenly performing is only for the privileged. It's only for those that can afford it.
Yeah, plus also it's like what I found, for instance, in New York, that because performing is not your job, performing is kind of like a mean to get to television. So it kind of also
Or to writing, or writer's room.
Or to writer's room. So it kind of brings maybe a wrong like tools from your toolbox. Not maybe being a supportive improviser, but more like I'm going to be a star because I want to be fished by the headhunters and so on and so on. Exactly. So actually, it actually has a better effect on the performance if the performers are being paid for the show.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
But you mentioned writing. What about writing? Because we see this pattern of, I get interested in improv, then I get professional in improv, then I start teaching, then I think, what to do next? So either I have my own stage or something, or my own school, or I start writing, or writing starts to become my goal. Is that something that you found in your life as a goal? Writing at all? Sketch, comedy, anything, scripts? They are not in their heads.
No, I'm very intrigued and curious about writing in general, but more like writing for the screen or writing something scripted theater. I've not really done any type of stand-up or sketch comedy or stuff like that. So I'm not at all attracted by writing this kind of things, simply because it's not my area. I am very curious about writing scripts, but it's not at all a priority for now.
I would even say that the thing that you're describing of like, oh, you start doing improv and then you get more professional, you want to do more, and then what is next? That's quite a US
It's a US mindset.
mindset of
definitely.
it. And
Yes.
in Europe, we see more people doing improv for the sake of improv.
Yeah.
And I consider us people who do improv for the sake of improv. It's not a stepping stone to something else. This is what we want to do.
Yeah,
This
my next
is the-
step is better improv.
Better improv.
Better
Yeah.
improv.
Better
Next step
improv
is
in
the
better
same step.
places.
Yes.
Yeah, but better.
Right.
It's like better improv in a better theater. It's more recognized. It's being able to be paid to perform better and all of that, and to also develop new things with people that I can offer pay for.
Yeah, tour with our
Tour
shows.
With shows, yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
cool.
Like we are
Right.
producing shows in Amsterdam that have a lot of production value now, more and more, and where we are actually putting the work, but we don't have yet the mean to tour them, right? For instance, and that's definitely more of a next step. I remember like the first time I went in a big theater in North America, seeing like the Hall of Fame of the people that had succeeded improv, and all of them succeeded to get out of improv.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's like as a student, if that's the first thing you see, it's such an interesting mindset to seed, where you're like, successful improvisers are improvisers that don't need to improvise anymore.
Yeah.
While I think
That's
successful improvisers are improvisers that keep improvising and keep bringing people back to improv. I love when that happens, when people are successful and keep bringing things back to actually this art form just because they like it and because they find it interesting.
That makes a lot of sense. Right. Maybe let's talk about your philosophy in improv, because we talk about this top level organization, traveling, and
all the fun stuff.
on the fun stuff, but also it's topical. But we want to get deep in. We are in Maratki, right? We are on improv camp.
The heart of Poland.
The very heart of Poland. No, it's a stomach of no.
No.
What is the wet part of human?
The bladder of
The bladder of Poland.
The bladder of Poland.
That's a little less sexy, but
Yeah, a little less sexy.
It's
Yeah.
accurate.
For those people who listen to us and don't know what Mazury are and where Maratki are, it's the Lake District. Like we're over the lake, and you teach classes here for our students. And tell us about your because these are very specific courses, right? Laura, you're teaching a course that is very genre oriented, and you teach the format that you created. Is it? Can you explain? Is it like central to your work, what you're doing here, or is it something that you're exploring? And what's the philosophy behind it?
Cool. So in Flock Theater, our company, we do a lot of genre work, which means that we work on a particular style for a bit. And we rehearse, we cast for it, and we rehearse and we perform in that style. So, for instance, we have done zombie apocalypse, we have done hospital drama, we have done sci-fi, also post-apocalyptic sci-fi. And all of these, like getting into a particular style of playing, is really inspiring. So one of the styles that I have done in a year-long course in our school, and that I now bring here to Maratki, is Once Upon a Time, which is a dark fairy tale genre. And basically, my vision on it, I think we have a particular way of storytelling in long form that, compared to many other styles, is taking it slower and basically just letting a lot of things develop, letting like discover over invention. And that style of long form narrative, also a long form narrative that is not from like you've always had to do this or always that. It's one where you discover it while you play it. That's the style I'm teaching here. And it's fantastic because I got a group of people who are very willing to unlearn everything they think they know. That's very fun. It's very cool to see them dive into that. We have worked on my favorite thing and most important thing in improv, in narrative long form ever, which is platform. It sounds boring, but man, we did a day and a half of just digging into how can you make such a rich, interesting, broad platform that from that point on, you can take it to a rom-com or to a zombie movie, or like it has so many details that you can tell any story. And basically, I think if you have a good platform, you're done. And on top of that, we do the genre thing. So that's like a base thing that I think you need for narrative long form. And then on top of that, we do dark fairy tales. So we did a bunch of like characters who suffer. And we did cruel obstacles and no happy endings. And those types of like, they give sort of like the flavor to the type of story that we're telling. It's a lot. I can see their brains hurting.
In 3 days.
Yes.
So if I understood correctly, you're undoing our work here. So I guess you said
Thank
you're...
you.
Good luck after this.
So we will redo it. We have to redo it now.
Right?
Yeah, good luck getting them back in September.
There's
Yeah.
It's actually good. You know, they have to go to the courses again.
Yes.
All right. Then what about you guys?
Yeah, I think I created Patchwork as a work. Like it started with being a working tool towards freeform in the way I play it. I play a type of freeform with my group that is very physical, committed, and I don't know, like it's very fast, but it's very slow at the same time. It has a weird combination of fast and slow, and it's all very, very, very deeply ingrained in full trust and letting go. And so I created that show, and then I developed that show, and I realized, oh, it's actually a lot of the things that I really love that I put in that show. So there is movement, there is staging that is super important. I spent half a day today teaching them not to look at each other. So another one that you will have to get back in September. This kind of things, and there is just like it's pure scene work, but with a format that is, I don't know, that is poetic. I really like when we put some poetry in improv, and I think it's a very nice packaging for scene work. In general, in my workshop, I tend to work a lot on the skills, and I start noticing tonight the students that were a little bit like, but what about the show? What about the format? Like,
Always freaked out.
We'll get there. But definitely, it's a lot of like connection and making sure that you understand each other and genuinely trying to connect and to be okay with what is there already. And it's always interesting because people are like, yeah, sure, but when are we going to do real improv? And these are the things that make real improv good improv, I think. Yeah. So I would say like Patchwork it's not per se my main format, but it's definitely today a lot of the things that I really, really care about in improv. Even though the other big side that I really, really care about is narrative improv. And in this case, it's a non-narrative format.
Right.
So we don't touch to any narrative stuff.
Right. And when you play a duo, because you do, right? What do you pursue? Do you like explore different stuff every time, or do you have some format that you play, or no format at all? You just know each other so well that you just know how to.
And if something happens, like relationship, is it stories?
Yeah.
Is it
do you really
weird shit?
Do you really your relationship in your improv?
We used to do that in the first format before being in a relationship. No, we used
dirty dishes. What's our inspiration? Ironing.
No, our first format was called Raison d'être, and that's the one that we nerded about edits about. And it was a nice format. It was kind of a slow burn, realistic, relationship-based format. And it was nice. But
it-
that's it.
Okay, for people listening, Gael made this eye. now.
Yeah.
The pause
And
and
here's
the
how we
eye.
discovered that it was nice, but well, nothing more at least up until then. Which is we were at a festival in Canada, and we played our slow burn, raison d'être format, relationship based, really interesting drama, everything. We played it later in the week, and they asked us at the beginning of that festival, could you play as a teaser? But because of the style of that particular format, it didn't really fit. What are you going to do? Like a
5 minutes slow burn.
Slow burn.
Five minutes of slow burn. Someone makes tea.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so we're like, can we do something else? We brainstormed. And then we both like physicality. I played a Pixar-inspired show. He plays animals and objects all the time. We love playing. In our format, it's a love relationship. You know what? Let's put that back in. You know what? We just had like a quick idea. We'll play the impossible love story between two objects. Great. Played I wouldn't say 5 minute, but I think it was even short. I think it was like a 4-minute scene. And that was at the beginning of the festival. And then later in the festival, we played our 45-minute beautiful long show. The whole week, we only got compliments about that scene. People kept talking about that one scene. And I'm like, well, it almost seems like people like those few minutes better than that really interesting format that we were playing. And so in our next step in that travel, we were like, oh, you know what? Let's do this impossible love story between two objects. Let's try that again. And that was Atlanta.
Yeah, and that was a part of a cage match. So it was 2 times 20 minutes. The first half of that cage match. So we had never played that format together except for these 4 minutes. And we're like, okay, so it's a narrative long form. It's the impossible love between two objects. That's it. And
Mysterious.
and the first half of that cage match was in Atlanta. That's Garage. They have a partnership with the Opera of Atlanta. And so it's been years that they work with opera singers, that they make them collaborate with some of their improvisers. And the first half was an improvised opera with actual opera singers.
Oh,
That's
And so we
pretty
were
strong
backstage and we were like, fucking hell, what is happening?
Now
we
follow,
were like,
follow this.
exactly.
But also, like, how dare you put a second? You know, we're just two people doing a story.
But the show went really, really well. Like we came out of our show very, very happy. And the audience raved about it and were super, super happy. And from that point on, we basically shifted from playing our first format to starting playing this format. And that format, Object of Affection. So it's the impossible love story between two objects. A little bit in the style of a Pixar thing. Well, right? So for instance, we ask for a first object. For instance, a cactus we had once. And then we are like, what could be the impossible love story of a cactus? Balloon.
A balloon, of course.
Exactly. And then we play a narrative long form, often around 45 to 60 minutes. The love story between a cactus and the balloon. And everyone is already just hearing that and they're like, oh, whoa.
Also, it's like, as a player, it's one of those like stories where you kind of know how it's going, right? You have a feeling. I tell you it's a possible love story between a cactus and a balloon, and you kind of have an idea how that story goes, which is great.
Because you expect something, and when you see it, you're
so
even more satisfied.
Exactly.
Right?
You're either happy because you're satisfied or you're surprised, which is also good. So
And we just get to play what is obvious and just have fun in the process.
And that's definitely the show that we've toured now the most. In 2019, 2020, we did a world tour to teach and perform improv. And that's the show we toured with.
Yeah.
So we've played Object of Affection now, I don't know, like almost
you started
30
in
times.
Wuhan and then you went to
Yeah,
Milan.
Oh my God.
Then Paris.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Very, very nice. Yes. But yeah, it's and so that's the main show that we are playing, the two of us.
And I think you were asking like the what's our vision on it. Basically, we played a scene. It was so much fun. We played more of it. And
It's intuitive.
that is at the base. Now I can now analyze it, why it works. But it came from this one felt easy. This one felt fun and easy.
And natural.
let's
and
do-
different from what is offered on stage. Also, like it's not a show I've ever seen anyone else do. So it's also very much at the Venn diagram of the two of us, and it makes us happy. It's successful for the audience, and it makes them happy. We have a lot of people that laugh and cry, which is what we love in improv, and then it's also kind of unique. So it's nice.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
win
Exactly.
win situation.
Yes.
One thing more satisfying than a laugh is an oh.
I know.
Or a silent, which is even better.
We love
That's the
it.
best.
We love
Swallowing the
making
tears.
cry.
Make him
Yes.
cry.
People being like, I never thought I would cry for a sugar cube.
I did not cry for 27 years.
Yeah.
Does it always is it always like they lived happily ever after, or?
Oh, I could spoil you. The end of the cactus and the balloon is that they ended.
I will never watch it, so you can.
It's it ended in a hug, but like a.
Oh.
I know. There we go.
No, it's not. Sometimes it's happy.
Yeah.
And they destroy the world. Like we don't have any rule for that. Sometimes it's been bittersweet. Sometimes kind of sad. Yeah.
Sometimes they go into marriage and it just lasts very long, and they're kind of bitter about this.
It's a very long show. That one.
Yeah, we try to have them care for each other as much as possible, but because it's an impossible love story, sometimes they solve their impossibility to be in love, and sometimes they can't, and that's just how life is. And we like exploring that too.
Beautiful.
It's very
I
good.
think coming to the end of this episode, we're very happy that you're here. But what are your experiences so far with Marat, with Polish improvisers? What do you think about this community that we have here?
To
Laura
be super nice.
Laura
we
mentioned
expect
it.
only good things here.
Okay,
Laura mentioned it, but and I was talking about it also during lunch. Is that I feel like my group is very eager to try things, to learn, and there are times where they're a little tired and probably they had too much alcohol, but they are present, and they are not afraid of trying things, and that is not that common to find. And the other thing is that I feel like I have 16 people, which is quite a big group, with people that didn't all know each other before, but it has very quickly felt like a safe group. And I feel like even at dinner or at lunch, looking around the people from the other groups and stuff, it feels like it's a very safe community. Like it's people that take care of each other and care for each other. And the combination of people that are willing to nerd and are willing to be kind with each other, that's pretty sweet.
The sweet spot.
That's really nice.
The camp in itself is such a it's such a wholesome experience. It's a beautiful place. I keep like looking at the view and the pine trees and just the smell of nature. And I feel like the people here are living the camp to the fullest. Like they're all there at the tables hanging out with each other, and they're all there partying until late with the campfire, and they are there for the talent show, and they are making sure that we come to the show. They are there at the workshop, even though sometimes, man, that last hour, they're battling through it.
Yes,
But they're there. They're not leaving, and they're not sleeping. They're there. And so there is a lot of I think almost like that's Polish improvisers' culture of committing hard to
Grinding.
every single part.
Yes.
I tell you what is this. They paid for the time they spent here. So they have to use it to the last dime.
And they do. And they do.
Whatever the reason, I'm happy with the results.
I'm obviously kidding, but I agree with you. It's like we love this place, and we were happy to have you here, and we're very happy you came and you agreed to record this episode with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very
you.
curious how you're going to edit this.
We're gonna edit it somehow.
That is gonna be a miracle to edit. To był podcast Szkoły Impro. Dziękujemy Wam bardzo za uwagę i słuchanie.
Nazywamy się Krzysiek i Paweł i tych odcinków będzie dużo, więc jeżeli wysłuchaliście i Wam się podobało, to dajcie nam okejki, gwiazdki, lajki, czy cokolwiek jest tam na platformie, na której słuchacie.
I jeżeli Wam się to podoba, to wysyłajcie nam pytania, propozycje tematów, propozycje gości. Chętnie się temu przyjrzymy. Oraz jeżeli chcecie po prostu wesprzeć naszą działalność, to nie wchodźcie na Patronite czy na jakieś inne tego typu portale.
Nie prowadzimy żadnych zbiórek. Jeżeli chcecie nas wesprzeć, zapiszcie się na kursy improwizacji.
I tym sposobem wesprzecie również siebie.
Do usłyszenia.